Yeah, so we're recording to the cloud. Hello, my name's Mike Naylor, and I'm delighted to say we can talk to the amazing George Anderson about his brand new album. Songs from Tomorrow is his fifth release, Secret Records. It contains 13 tracks and 3 bonus ones, and was recorded between March and December 2020 during the coronavirus pandemic. Well, George, hi. Thanks for being with it.
It's a pleasure.
Was this a project that you'd actually began before lockdown? Or was that the spur that you needed to start writing?
It was a spur that I needed to start writing because I knew that this was going to happen for quite a while, and it was coming up about every 3 to 4 years. I do a solo album, so the time frame was kind of coming up to do something. So yeah, it was the spur to do something. I had to immerse myself creatively into something in order to be positive with what was going to happen.
But also you sort of don't hide away from the fact that we're in the pandemic, and the first track is called Lockdown, and the others obviously refer to the virus. So you weren't shying away from what's happening in the world.
No, I felt it important to chronicle where we are as an artist. And the only way that I can do it is via music. So, there are ways of doing it. Like I could be really pessimistic about it, but as a musician, as a humanist, I always believe in the fortitude of the human spirit.
So, how do you go about writing as a bass player? Do you sort of bash out a melody on the bass, or do you use other instruments?
Yeah, there's various kind of things. It's according to the track. If it's a funk track, it obviously lends itself more to the bass line first, and then a song will wrap itself around that. If it's like a ballad track that needs chords and keys and stuff like that, the keyboard comes into play. But I think it always starts with some kind of, well, for me, it starts with a kind of a groove, either a drum groove, or something, and then you just add on bits as and when the kind of muse gets to you, really.
And because of the circumstances you found yourself in, were you doing these grooves or this jamming to start a song off all on your own?
Yeah. For this type of new process, I mean, if we go back in the day to the kind of 80s, before kind of computers and things came on board, you kind of needed other people to try and work your ideas with. But because of the advent of computers and modern technology, you can kind of do most of it yourself because of what's available, kind of music and technological wise. So it was something that I was used to doing. And what you do, you kind of get a format, kind of a guide, and then you involve the other parties to try and improve on what you've made. Yeah.
So you had to email them your initial sort of recordings, and
bit by bit. I mean, say I had a very vague kind of idea, I would then approach my keyboard player of choice who could make sense of my kind of musical nonsense and pin it together. So there's a kind of a basis of musicality, either with a chorus idea, a verse idea, or a bridge idea, and then I would take those components back and kind of edit them together until I've got a kind of a song format.
Still no lyrics though at this point?
No. Well, a kind of an idea. So Lockdown, obviously, that was the idea, to do something around the lockdown. So I decided to do something that was uplifting. I remember a conversation with with the record company, and one of them said, "Lockdown, oh, do you think that people want to be reminded about that? It's not a very happy situation." And I said, well, if you listen to the track, it doesn't really give that kind of vibe of unhappiness. So what that track does, even though we're all locked down, we can come together and produce something which kind of positive and happy.
Well, and it certainly is. And Lockdown is the opening track after your traditional short intro.
Yeah.
So when you do the recording process, then were you able to use the sort of Zoom technology or internet technology to sort of try and play these tracks together live, or was that not possible?
No, because of the kind of lag, kind of delay thing. As I said before, the keyboard player would do something, and then I'd work on the kind of structure, and then I'd give it to my vocalist, Debbie Bracknell, who would then, I would have some kind of melody ideas. I'm not a great vocalist at all, so I need help in those areas. So I'd give it to her to kind of, again, make sense of what what my ideas are. And it's always better when somebody like a vocalist kind of or keyboard player interprets your idea. It always sounds better. So she would sing the idea, and then I would get a kind of a vague kind of notion if it's suitable for a male vocal or female vocal. So then that idea would that process would lend itself to, as I said before, finding out if a vocalist should be male or female. It's a really kind of organic process, very organic process. I'm sure other people have different processes, but this is the process that I've used to do my 4 solo things and the Shakatak stuff that I've done as well. So yeah.
Well, but it does sound amazing, and
great!
That you've got 9 other musicians and you've got 6 vocalists on this. I mean, there's very, very obviously strong brass section of trumpets, saxophone, and trombones. I mean, to me it does sound like it could have been a live sound.
I kind of try to get that kind of vibe, and a lot of the songs, well, most of the songs I wrote, apart from a few high-end kind of covers, as we'd say. I tried to get that involvement, and big props up to Sid Gould, who did the brass arrangements and multi-tracking himself, either with a trumpet and flugelhorn, which is a bit of a lower kind of a trumpet sound, and that gives a kind of a more rounded edge to a brass section. And obviously with the other players, Patrick Hartley on saxophone, and who else played? Anyway, I just have to. Patrick Hartley on saxophone, Sean Freeman on sax. Yeah. He plays with Level 42. He now lives in the Netherlands as well. So although via the internet, it doesn't matter if you're 5 minutes down the road or 5 hours down the road, if you see what I mean. It doesn't really matter.
You don't have long conversations. You're just relying on their musical skill and expertise.
Yeah. Fortunately, I try to surround myself with good musicians to make me sound good. So, yeah.
but these are guys that you've worked with and played with.
I've kind of worked with them on and off, because in between the Shakatak projects, I've done some live gig work. So a lot of the players I've used for the live GA band. So I know how well they can perform, etc., etc. So as I said, it's like being, I suppose, a CEO. You surround yourself with good people, and it to improve the company. So that's what I try and do.
So you didn't do much sort of discarding of ideas and re-editing, or once you'd got that original groove and then built on it, then you'd sold it to the others. Allowed them the space, and it all sort of flowed, did it, bit by bit?
Yeah. Although there's 13 tracks on the CD, I recorded numerous other sketches of ideas. And normally when you sketch an idea out and you kind of work on it for a day or two, you kind of get the indication if it's going to work or not. So then it becomes a kind of a filtering process. No, that idea doesn't work. And then start another idea. So it's, as I said, it's very organic.
So the first track, Lockdown, as you say, despite the topic, is very upbeat and uplifting, really. And
okay,
in a sense, so too the next one, Love Makes You Feel the Pain. Interesting lyric. Is that sort of talking about something that's happened personally or not?
Yeah, it can. But it applies to everybody.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And then that sort of upbeat nature continues on the title track, Song for Tomorrow. Sing a song of joy and hope in the key of life. Follow your heart and soul, it feels so right. Look to the sky, it radiates truth. Open your soul and your mind to a new space divine. Okay. That's your humanist sort of philosophy in that, is it?
Yeah, it's, I mean, in terms of influences, I mean, that particular track is my kind of lyrical kind of take on Stevie Wonder, you know, that type of message of joy and hope, and we can overcome. There's nothing that you know the human spirit cannot do if we all pull together. So that's my kind of effort.
Good.
At that.
Well, I'll come back to that later because I want to talk about the future. But talking of Stevie Wonder, the following track on the album is his amazing song "Higher Ground." I guess you always loved it from the first time you heard it, yeah?
Of course, yeah. I mean, you know, on my record collection, I've got quite a few albums. I didn't throw them away. Stevie is the first lot of albums, so it's Stevie number one, and then everyone else after that. That's how I kind of done my kind of library of my albums. Yeah,
I mean, this track, you know, it could be from, I don't know, any era. It's just going to stand the test of time, isn't it? Really, it's timeless, but it's his great sort of funky sound.
Yeah. I mean, Stevie's still a great artist, kind of musician, but a lot of musicians go through, you know, the purple patch, and the purple patch is that early 70s Stevie Wonder period where his songwriting and the songs and the production were, I think, at his pinnacle, really. So that was at a period where everything that came out was absolutely brilliant.
And that sound, if you like, you know, whether it's Superstition and Song, Talking Book and that, it was pretty innovative at the time, wasn't it?
It was. I used to remember, because at that time I was into kind of prog rock and all kinds of things. But Stevie was one of those artists where he'd do an album, I don't know, about once every 2 years or once every 3 years. It was an event because you just wanted to hear what new thing he was going to come out with.
Yeah.
And for a while, everything that he came out with, it was like, wow. And yeah.
Absolutely. So the first 5 songs on your new album, George, Song from Tomorrow, are very up tempo, but as I said, I think uplifting as well, which is good. You got a couple of slow ones, which are a lovely contrast. And the first of those is called "Keep the Faith."
Yeah.
Just tell us about that song, really, could you?
Yeah, it's But when I, kind of do a CD, because I'm an old fart, I try to do the CD in a way as if you're listening to it in one continual kind of listen period.
Yeah.
So, the first few tracks are up, and then I let you go down a little bit, and then I bring it back up.
Okay.
So Keep the Faith was my, the first bit where I was going to bring the audience down a little bit, to be a little bit more slower in vibe. And Keep the Faith is a kind of a medium tempo, slow vibe thing.
As is, in a sense, flow. And I was interested in this because the lyrics are: another child looking at a mother from this lifetime, hands on a window to feel her soul, miss her touch all too much, her voice, her look, her tender touch, taken by a virus that's so cruel. Is this again referring obviously to the pandemic?
Yeah.
And somebody you knew, but just generally?
Yeah, my sister passed away. Not due to COVID, but maybe, yeah. Anyway, so yes, yeah, and she was obviously yeah. In that way, I'm zipping a little bit of my emotions there, but it's a song about where we are, where certain people's adventure in this time, they've lost people, and I think I've captured that in this song. So great vocalist by a Dutch vocalist, Shakatak, and she did an absolutely marvelous job. Yeah, very.
Have you recorded with her before?
No. This was the first time. I kind of met her. I did a gig here with my GA band in Holland, and obviously I couldn't get my British band over. It'd be too expensive, so I used Dutch musicians, and she was the vocalist I used. She came very. People spoke highly of her, so I used her, and then I thought, this is the vocalist I can use if I do another CD, and I used her, and she was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, well, you've got 6 female vocalists on this, and Debbie Bracknell, she does the song before, Keep the Faith, and I think you've worked with her before, haven't you? She
is my vocalist of choice. When I started this solo venture thing, we worked together, and she's also co-written songs on this album. She's my kind of, I call her my my writing partner in rhyme.
Yes, and another one is Joyce San Matteo. She takes the lead on Let's Celebrate Life. That's
yeah.
Cool in the moment, I suppose, is it?
Yes, yeah. She resides in Holland as well. So I used musicians from the Netherlands and from the UK. So unfortunately, my budget couldn't go towards getting people from America. But I don't really know a lot of musicians from America. So it's always nice to have a little bit of a personal contact first before you approach people.
Of course.
So yeah.
And 3 instrumentals on the album, because again, partly what you do. I liked Teen Town quite a lot. It seemed to be African influence as well as sort of jazz funk. Yeah,
well, that's one of the covers, as you would say. It's the very famous piece that bass players and funk musicians, jazz funk musicians know from a bass player called Jaco Pastorius, who used to play in Weather Report. I thought I would do a version of it. It's a bit of a beast to play, but I thought I would change it slightly in terms of it's got a slightly different groove, and I think the kind of synth sounds, and I think I've put a kind of a funk section bit in it for the sax player Max Sibley to really take it to town, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, and Donna Lee, that's a Charlie Parker one, yeah?
That's a Charlie Parker thing, again, very influenced by Jaco Pastorius, who did a version on his seminal album called Jaco Pastorius. I'm not saying that I'm anything near Jaco in virtuosity, but I like to challenge myself as a musician, and those two are pieces that I've been playing for years and years and years and years to kind of build my chops up. So I thought I'd do a slightly different version. Again, it's a slightly different groove. It's not like I'm doing exactly the same version as those. So those are my cover versions.
Yeah, and then the final instrumental that you wrote called Masks. I said, so we're back to the lockdown thing, yeah?
Yeah. Masks, I was due to fly over and see my sons who are in the UK. And because, the lockdown's been going up, down, it came at the time where they, we locked down again. So I couldn't go to visit them. So I think on the day I was due to fly out, I just sat down and composed or sketched out Masks. I was going to call it Mask, but then I was encouraged to call it Masks because it goes through different movements, if you see what I mean. So yeah, and again, it's kind of a thematic kind of orchestral piece, and then it goes off into something else. Again, I try to give the impression that it kind of starts off minery and a little bit somber, but I think at the end it then gets a little bit of a more optimistic, happier vibe, and that's how I see life. To try and strive for that happy, optimistic side. Yeah.
So you must be pretty pleased, though, very pleased with the outcome. And would you say that you've stretched yourselves musically and you're playing better and better than before, than ever?
Well, I think I have. I think on this CD, because I've had a lot of time on it. Really, it took 8 months, but part of that process, the 8 months, it kind of it's because of the process of getting information or performances over the internet, then editing it, then sending it back if it's not right, or it's easier if the musicians are in the same room with you to get an immediate kind of acknowledgement if things are going to work. Using the internet in this way, it kind of elongates the process. Yeah.
Now, normally, I suppose you would plan to go out on tour with your band, promote this album live.
Yeah.
How optimistic are you that at some stage, perhaps in early spring, late spring, summer, that might happen?
Who knows? Yeah. I'm always trying to be optimistic because, when I set out with this CD, I wanted it to be done around the pandemic time because the first lockdown, everyone thought that, okay, it'd be 1 year and then we'll come out again. So I thought, right, okay, I'll concentrate everything in this first year, in this pandemic year, and then go out and tour with Shakatak and tour with the CD. Obviously, things have taken another dip, but who knows? In late summer, autumn, I may do some gigs here in Europe because I am now in Europe, and who knows? And then obviously regarding Shakatak, we've postponed a lot of our tours until next year.
I was going to ask you about that because, in a sense, year 2020 was the sort of 40th anniversary after the founding band, and this year 2021 is the 40th anniversary of the first album, Driving Hard.
Yes, correct. So it's just one of those things. I think a lot of us are just like everyone else, just trying to get through this until we get to a phase where we can actually go out and perform again, because there's nothing like playing in front of a live audience, of course. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, absolutely.
That we all stay healthy and can perform for everybody. I mean, sad news today, or last night, that one of our kind of founding fathers of fusion music, Chick Corea, has passed. So who knows what's around the corner? But I always try to believe and think that being optimistic and looking at the future in a positive way is the only way that we can reconcile ourselves mentally.
Absolutely, but during the winter it's hard, and I know so many people, and I'm feeling the strain of it, and
it's a struggle.
Each day can become repetitive, merge into the next.
Sure.
And you've got to focus, and your focus clearly has been music and making the album, George. It's been brilliant to talk to you.
Okay, great.
The album is called Songs from Tomorrow by George Anderson. It's on Secret Records, 13 tracks plus 3 bonus ones. It will make you feel good. It will make you feel joyful and uplifted, mostly. And it's beautifully put together, despite the constraints and the difficulties in working not in a studio together. I think you've overcome those brilliantly. And
thank you.
Really good to talk to you about it.
I have to say the cover design is absolutely brilliant by Marquise Palmer. Again, he lives here. He did an absolutely brilliant job. It's fantastic. It sums up kind of all what I'm about. I mean, in the background there, you can kind of see a little bit of some kind of city from somewhere, from either the past or in the future. So he realized my kind of I don't know what you can call it, vision.
This is an ancient, maybe Egyptian architecture.
Yeah, I think it's Mayan.
It's
Mayan.
Ah, right. Okay.
Yeah, I think that even predates Egyptian.
Fair enough. Well said. Yeah. And then there's a 4-legged animal in there too. And then I guess what could be a sickle, but also a flute player or a bassoon player or whatever.
Yeah, well, that is an ancient. I use that a lot on my CDs. That's called a cockapelli. Now, the story with this, apparently, it's one of the first drawings by prehistoric man.
Wow.
It's a sign of life, fertility, etc. And as various civilizations have come on, they've adopted it. Obviously, prehistoric man didn't have a saxophone or whatever, but different civilizations have adopted it as a sign of positivity, I think, and creativity. So that's where that comes from.
And that's you.
Yeah.
I mean, I love actually having a physical copy, and it's a lovely booklet of the lyrics in and a bit of explanation from you at the start, and obviously the names of credits all the musicians at the end. That's good. It's important.
Yeah, I think that if you're doing a physical CD, it has to be obviously something that you can't download. And I think what I've tried to achieve is you may be able to download the album for whatever it is, £9.99 or something. But I think to have the CD in its physical form is a better experience because you've got more information. And yeah, and us musicians get more money from CDs. But anyway, that's a whole different.
Yeah, but quite rightly, I think you should. Thank you, sir.
It's a pleasure, Mike, and thank you very much for being. At least you listened to it, which is great.
Several times, and it got better each time. But yeah, I didn't know what to expect. I know quite a lot of Shakatak.
Yeah, sure.
I'll stop the recording in a minute.
Okay, fine.
And